and accidentally sent me a video of my family calling me a pathetic failure, while I'd been supporting them for years. I stayed silent. Until the next payment was due. Hey there, I'm Eric, and I've got a story that still feels surreal every time I think about it. I'm 28, work as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company in Chicago, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty normal relationship with my family. Well, normal might be stretching it, but I never expected things to implode the way they did. Growing up in our modest suburban home, it was always clear that my younger sister Melissa was the golden child. She's 25 now, 3 years younger than me, and from day one, she could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Don't get me wrong, I love Melissa. She's smart, outgoing, and charming, the kind of person who lights up a room. But my parents' obvious favoritism was hard to ignore. Every time Melissa brought home a B+, it was celebration time. When I brought home straight A's, my dad, Richard, would just nod and ask if I'd taken out the trash. My mom, Linda, was a bit more subtle about it, but the pattern was the same. Melissa's dance recitals, softball games, and even her minor academic achievements were family events. My coding competitions, chess tournaments, and honor roll mentions? Barely acknowledged. I tried not to let it bother me too much growing up. Kids are resilient, I guess. I focused on my studies, got a scholarship to a decent state college, and graduated with a computer science degree. After bouncing around a couple of entry-level jobs, I landed a solid position at my current company 3 years ago. The pay was good, not spectacular, but enough to live comfortably and save a bit. That's when things with my family started to shift. Not in the way you might expect, though. About 2 years ago, my dad lost his job of 20 years when his company downsized. It was rough on him, both financially and emotionally. He'd been a sales manager at an office supply company, and at 58, finding comparable work wasn't easy. My mom had always worked part-time as a receptionist at a dentist's office, but her income wasn't enough to cover their mortgage, car payments, and other expenses. When they called to tell me about Dad's job loss, I immediately offered to help. "Don't worry about it, I can chip in until Dad finds something new," I told them. At first, they resisted, pride and all that, but within a month, they were accepting my offer. What started as a temporary arrangement quickly became a regular thing. Dad found some part-time work at a hardware store, but it paid less than half of what he'd been making before. Mom picked up more hours at the dentist's office, but it still wasn't enough. I started sending them $1,200 a month to help with the mortgage and utilities. Meanwhile, Melissa had graduated college with a communications degree and moved back home while finding herself. She worked sporadic part-time gigs, barista 1 month, retail the next, but never seemed to hold anything down for long. Yet somehow, she always had money for new clothes, weekend trips with friends, and concert tickets. I didn't mind helping my parents. I was making decent money, and family helps family, right? I cut back on some things, delayed buying a new car, took fewer weekend trips, ate out less, but it was worth it to know my parents weren't stressed about bills. The arrangement continued for almost 2 years. During this time, I met Olivia, an amazing woman who worked in marketing. We clicked instantly, and within 8 months, I'd proposed. She said yes, and we started planning a small wedding for the following spring. When I told my family about the engagement, their reaction was lukewarm at best. My mom said, "Oh, that's nice, honey," before immediately changing the subject to ask if I'd sent this month's check yet. My dad grunted something about marriage being expensive. Melissa, at least, seemed genuinely happy for me, though she immediately started suggesting expensive wedding venues that were way beyond our budget. Olivia noticed their lack of enthusiasm and tried to reassure me. "They're probably just distracted with their own stuff," she said, always looking for the best in people. But I knew better. This was just more of the same, my life achievements taking a backseat to everything else. Despite their tepid response, I invited them to meet Olivia's parents for dinner. They agreed, but on the day of the dinner, they called to cancel at the last minute because Melissa had tickets to a concert she'd forgotten about, and they'd promised to drive her. I was embarrassed having to explain to Olivia's parents, who had driven 2 hours to meet my family. Still, I kept sending money. Family helps family, right? Everything changed on a random Tuesday afternoon 3 months ago. I was working from home, deep into coding a new feature, when my phone pinged with a message from my Aunt Karen, my mom's sister. She doesn't message me often, so I was curious. It was a video with the caption "Lol, look at Richard trying to dance." I smiled, thinking it was just a funny clip of my dad attempting to bust a move at some family gathering I'd missed. I tapped play, eager for a quick laugh to break up my workday. The video started with shaky footage of what looked like my parents' living room. I could see the back of my dad's head and my mom sitting on the couch. Karen must have been recording from the kitchen doorway. I could hear laughter, multiple voices talking over each other. Then I heard my name. "So has Eric sent the money for this month yet?" That was my dad's voice, clear as day. "Not yet, but he will," my mom replied, taking a sip from a wine glass. "He always does. It's the only thing he's reliable for." More laughter. My heart started pounding as I kept watching, unable to look away. "I still can't believe he's actually getting married," said another voice, Melissa. The camera panned slightly, and I could see her now, sprawled in the armchair, scrolling through her phone. Like, who would want to marry him? He's so boring. "Well, this Olivia must be desperate," my dad chuckled. "Or maybe she's after his money. He does make a decent living, I'll give him that." "Not that decent," my mom scoffed. "He acts like he's some big-shot tech genius, but he's just a code monkey. If he was really successful, he'd be able to help us more than he does." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My hands were shaking as I continued watching. "You should see his face when I tell him about my money troubles," my dad said, mimicking a concerned expression that made everyone laugh. "So easy to play." "Oh no, Dad, let me help. Like a damn ATM." "He should be grateful we even talked to him," Melissa chimed in. "Remember how weird he was in high school? All those stupid computer games and no friends." "God, he was such an embarrassment," my mom agreed. "Remember when he wanted us to come to that coding competition? As if anyone cares about that crap." More laughter. My Aunt Karen's voice came from behind the camera. "You guys are awful." But she was laughing too. "Hey, if he wants to throw his money at us, I'm not complaining," my dad said, raising his glass in a mock toast. "To Eric, the pathetic failure who pays our bills." They all clinked glasses, laughing. The video continued for another 30 seconds or so, with more cruel comments about my appearance, my job, and even speculation about why Olivia would be with me. Then it cut off abruptly. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like I was going to throw up. A minute later, another message from Aunt Karen popped up. "OMG, I'm so sorry. That was meant for Linda. Please delete it." Then another, "Eric, please call me." It wasn't what it looked like. But it was exactly what it looked like. I had just watched my entire family, people I'd been supporting financially for years, people I thought loved me despite our differences, mocking me behind my back, calling me a pathetic failure, and basically admitting they were using me for money. I didn't respond to Karen. I couldn't. I turned off my phone and just sat there, trying to process what I'd seen. The worst part wasn't even the cruel words, it was the casual way they said them, the easy laughter, like they'd had this conversation many times before. After about an hour of sitting in shocked silence, I turned my phone back on to find a barrage of missed calls and messages from Karen, my mom, and even Melissa. They all had the same panicked tone: "Please call back, it was just a joke, we didn't mean it," etc. I texted Karen one sentence: "Thank you for showing me the truth." Then I blocked her number. For my parents and Melissa, I sent a group text: "I saw the video. Don't contact me again." Then I blocked them too. I called in sick for the rest of the week. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Olivia was amazing through it all. She came over immediately when I told her what happened, held me while I processed everything, and never once suggested I should forgive them just because they're family. "Family doesn't treat you like that," she said firmly. "You deserve better, Eric." After a few days of processing, I made some decisions. First, I stopped the automatic transfer to my parents' account. The money I'd already sent for the month would be the last they'd get from me. Second, I changed my phone number. Third, I deleted all my social media accounts and created new ones with privacy settings maxed out. I thought that would be the end of it. I was hurt, deeply hurt, but I was also relieved in a way. The mask had slipped, and now I could stop pretending we had a normal family relationship. I could stop trying to earn love and approval that were never going to come. But of course, it wasn't that simple. 2 weeks after I cut contact, they showed up at my apartment. I only knew because the building security called up to ask if I wanted to let them in. I declined. They tried again the next day, and the next. After the 4th attempt, I asked security not to call me about them anymore and to tell them to leave if they showed up again. Then the emails started. Since I'd blocked their phone numbers, they resorted to flooding my inbox. My mom's messages were manipulative guilt trips: "How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you?" My dad's were angry demands: "Man up and call your mother. This is childish." Melissa's were a mix of half-hearted apologies and accusations that I was overreacting. I created email filters to send their messages straight to trash. A week later, a mutual friend called to tell me my parents were spreading stories about me, claiming I'd had some kind of mental breakdown, that I was being manipulated by Olivia, that I had gambling debts I was hiding from everyone. Classic deflection tactics. I didn't bother trying to correct the record. People who really knew me would see through the lies, and I didn't care what anyone else thought. Then came the financial fallout. About a month after I stopped sending money, I got an email from my dad that made it through my filters because he used a new address. "The mortgage is due," was all it said. No greeting, no acknowledgement of what had happened, no apology. Just a demand thinly disguised as information. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. They so perfectly encapsulated my family's attitude toward me. I wasn't a person with feelings to them, just a source of funds. I drafted several responses, ranging from scathing to sarcastic, but ultimately settled on something simpler. "Not my problem," I replied, and blocked the new email address. 2 days later, my mom somehow got hold of Olivia's work email and sent her a long, rambling message about how I was destroying the family, how they were going to lose the house, how my dad's health was declining from the stress, and how Olivia needed to talk some sense into me if she really loved me. Olivia forwarded it to me with a single comment: "These people are toxic." She was right. I've been making excuses for their behavior my entire life, but seeing it laid bare like this, the manipulation, the guilt-tripping, the utter lack of respect for me as a person, it was impossible to ignore anymore. But the drama wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. About 2 months after I cut contact, I was finally starting to feel better. Work was going well, I'd even gotten a small promotion. Olivia and I had resumed wedding planning, opting for an even smaller ceremony with just close friends and her family. Life was moving forward. Then one evening, Olivia came home from a work happy hour looking upset. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat down on the couch next to me, and took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice tight. "And you're not going to like it." My stomach dropped. In my experience, conversations that start this way never end well. "I ran into Jake at the bar tonight," she continued. Jake was Melissa's boyfriend of about a year. They'd met at some music festival, and my parents had immediately embraced him as part of the family. He was good-looking, charming, and worked in finance, all things my parents valued. They'd even joked about how they wished I was more like Jake. "He was there with some work colleagues," Olivia went on. "When he saw me, he came over to talk. At first, it was just small talk, but then he started getting inappropriate." My hands clenched into fists. "What do you mean, inappropriate?" "He was hitting on me, Eric. Aggressively. Saying things like how I was wasted on you, asking if I was sure I wanted to marry into your family, suggesting I could do better." She looked disgusted just recounting it. When I told him to back off, he laughed and said I should think about it because you were a sinking ship and I'd be smart to jump to a better boat. I was furious, but not entirely surprised. Jake had always given me bad vibes, though I'd kept those thoughts to myself because Melissa seemed happy. "Did he say anything else?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Olivia hesitated. He implied that your family was only keeping you around for financial support. He knew about the money you've been sending them, Eric. He even knew the exact amount. And he said now that you've turned off the tap, they're all scrambling." That confirmed what I'd suspected. Jake was fully in on the family discussions about me. But hearing that he'd hit on my fiancé and essentially told her to leave me, that was a new low. "I'm so sorry," Olivia said, squeezing my hand. I shut him down completely, told him he was disgusting, and left immediately. "I just thought you should know." I thanked her for telling me and for standing her ground with Jake. Then I went to the bathroom and threw cold water on my face, trying to calm down. I was angry, at Jake, at my sister for being with someone like that, at my parents for welcoming him while treating me like dirt. But mostly, I was sad. Sad that my family had fallen so far, sad that they'd shared private information about me with someone like Jake, sad that this was what we'd become. After some reflection, I decided to reach out to Melissa directly about Jake's behavior. Despite everything that had happened, she was still my sister, and she deserved to know what kind of man she was dating. I created a new email account and sent her a brief, factual account of what had happened, making it clear I had no reason to lie about this and that Olivia had witnesses. Her response came within an hour, and it was worse than I could have imagined. "How dare you make up lies about Jake just because you're jealous of him? He told me you might try something like this. You've always been pathetic, but this is a new low even for you. Stay away from us and get some help. I stared at her message in disbelief. She didn't just disbelieve me, she was actively accusing me of lying out of jealousy. It was the final straw. I forwarded her response to Olivia, who was as shocked as I was. Should we try to get one of the people from my work who witnessed it to reach out to her? She suggested. I shook my head. She's made her choice. They've all made their choices. And that was that. I resolved to put my family, all of them, firmly in my past and focus on building a future with people who actually cared about me. The next few months were quiet. I threw myself into work, therapy, which was long overdue, and wedding planning. Olivia and I found a charming small venue for our ceremony, scheduled for the following spring. Life was moving forward, and slowly but surely, the ache of my family's betrayal began to dull. Then, 6 months after I'd cut contact, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mom's handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a formal invitation to Melissa and Jake's engagement party, along with a handwritten note from my mom. Eric, we know things have been difficult between us, but family is family. Your sister is getting married, and she wants her brother there. Please come to the engagement party. We can put the past behind us and start fresh. Love, Mom. No apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd done or said. Just a demand disguised as an olive branch, family is family, as if that excused everything. I showed the invitation to Olivia, who snorted in disbelief. Are they serious? After everything they said about you, after Jake hit on me, after Melissa called you a liar? And now they expect you to just show up and play happy families? I'm not going, I said firmly. I took the invitation and tore it in half, then quarters, then eighths, watching the pieces flutter into the trash can. But something about the invitation bothered me. Why now? Why reach out after 6 months of silence with an invitation to a party? It didn't make sense. Unless there was something else going on. I decided to do some digging. Through some mutual acquaintances, I learned that my parents' financial situation had gone from bad to worse. My dad had lost his part-time job at the hardware store, and they were several months behind on their mortgage. Melissa had moved out of their house and in with Jake, who apparently had a nice condo downtown. And then I found out the kicker: Jake came from money. His parents were wealthy, not billionaires, but comfortable enough to own multiple properties and take luxury vacations. The engagement party was being held at an exclusive country club where Jake's family were members. Suddenly it all made sense. This wasn't about wanting me at Melissa's engagement party. This was about appearances. They couldn't have Jake's well-to-do family wondering why the bride's brother wasn't at the celebration. It would raise questions, make things awkward. They needed me there to maintain the facade of a happy, united family. And I'd bet anything they were hoping to hit me up for money again, too. With Jake's family in the picture, they probably saw dollar signs and didn't want to look bad by having financial problems. I felt a strange mix of vindication and disgust. Even now, after everything, they were still trying to use me, this time for appearances rather than direct financial support. I decided to respond to the invitation, but not in the way they were hoping. I wrote a polite, formal card. Thank you for the invitation to Melissa and Jake's engagement party. Unfortunately, I will be unable to attend. Please extend my congratulations to the happy couple. I'm sure Jake will make Melissa very happy, as he seemed quite practiced at making passes at engaged women when he hit on my fiancé. Best wishes, Eric. I mailed it to my parents' house, knowing they'd read it before passing it along to Melissa and Jake. It was petty, perhaps, but after months of taking the high road, it felt good to get in one small dig. The fallout was immediate and predictable. My mom called from a new number I hadn't blocked yet, leaving a voicemail full of tears and recriminations about how I was ruining Melissa's special time with vicious lies. My dad sent an email demanding I act like a man and apologize. Melissa sent a particularly nasty message calling me pathetic, jealous, and determined to ruin her happiness. I didn't respond to any of it. I'd said my piece, and frankly, I was done engaging with them at all. But the universe has a way of delivering justice sometimes. A week before Melissa and Jake's engagement party, I got an unexpected email from a name I didn't recognize, Ashley Weber. The subject line was simple: about Jake Crawford. The email was long and detailed. Ashley introduced herself as Jake's ex-girlfriend from 2 years ago. She'd been with him for almost 3 years before catching him cheating with multiple women. When she'd confronted him, he'd gaslighted her, called her crazy and paranoid, and eventually turned all their mutual friends against her with lies about her being mentally unstable. She'd moved to another state to get away from the drama and had been in therapy ever since, trying to rebuild her self-esteem. She'd recently seen the announcement of Jake and Melissa's engagement in their hometown newspaper's website and felt compelled to reach out. "I know this is coming from a complete stranger," she wrote, "but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least try to warn your sister. Jake is dangerous, not physically, but emotionally. He's a master manipulator who isolated me from everyone who cared about me until I was completely dependent on him. Then he cheated constantly while making me feel like I was losing my mind for suspecting him. I have proof, text messages, emails, photos, if anyone in your family wants to see it. I'm not doing this out of spite or jealousy. I'm truly scared for your sister and what she's getting herself into." I read the email 3 times, my heart pounding. Everything Ashley described fit perfectly with what I'd seen of Jake and how he'd already started turning my family against me when I raised concerns. I forwarded the email to Melissa with a short note: "I know you won't believe me, but maybe you'll believe her. Whatever you decide, I hope you'll be careful and happy." I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one, at least not directly from Melissa. But 2 days later, Ashley emailed me again, thanking me for passing along her message. Apparently, Melissa had reached out to her, initially hostile and accusing, but had gradually opened up as Ashley shared her evidence and her story. "I don't know what will happen with them," Ashley wrote, "but at least she's asking questions now. That's more than I did until it was too late." I thanked Ashley for her courage in reaching out and wished her well in her continued healing journey. Then I put the whole situation out of my mind. I'd done what I could, the rest was up to Melissa. The day of the engagement party came and went. I didn't attend, of course, but through the grapevine, I heard it had been eventful. Apparently, Melissa had called off the engagement right there at the party, in front of everyone, after finding texts on Jake's phone from another woman. There had been a scene, with Jake trying to explain it away and Melissa's rage escalating until security had to escort him out. I felt bad for my sister despite everything. Being publicly humiliated and having your heart broken simultaneously is a special kind of hell I wouldn't wish on anyone. But I kept my distance. The bridge between us had been thoroughly burned, and one dramatic breakup wasn't going to change that. A week later, though, I got another email from my mom, this one different from her previous messages. "Eric, I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try. You were right about Jake. He was cheating on Melissa, and when she confronted him, he said terrible things to her. She's devastated. She moved back home yesterday, and she's in a really bad place. I know we've all hurt you, and I'm not making excuses for that. But Melissa could really use her big brother right now, if you can find it in your heart to reach out to her. Mom." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing to one I'd received so far. I sat with the email for a day, trying to sort through my feelings. On one hand, I was still hurt and angry about how they'd treated me. On the other hand, Melissa was going through something terrible, and despite everything, a part of me still cared about her well-being. In the end, I decided to reach out, not because I was ready to forgive and forget, but because it was the right thing to do. I sent Melissa a simple text from my new number. "Hey, it's Eric. I heard what happened. I'm sorry you're going through this. If you want to talk, I'm here." Her response came quickly, just one word: "Why?" I knew what she was asking. Why would I reach out after everything that had happened? Why would I offer support when she'd called me a liar and pathetic? "Because no one deserves what Jake did to you," I texted back. "And because despite everything, you're still my sister." There was a long pause before her next message: "I don't deserve your kindness." "Probably not," I replied honestly. "But I'm offering it anyway." We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our places. The meeting was awkward at first, with both of us struggling to find the right words. Melissa looked terrible, with dark circles under her eyes and a defeated slump to her shoulders that I'd never seen before. Eventually, she broke the silence. "You tried to warn me about Jake, and I called you a liar. I'm so sorry, Eric." It was the first genuine apology I'd received from any member of my family, and it caught me off guard. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. "I should have believed you," she continued, tears welling in her eyes. "But Jake had been filling my head with all these ideas about you being jealous of him, about how you couldn't stand seeing me happy. I believed him because it was easier than admitting how badly we'd all treated you." I nodded, letting her talk. And then when Ashley reached out, she shook her head. At first, I didn't want to believe her either, but she had so much evidence, so many details that matched what I'd already started noticing about Jake. It made me start questioning everything. And when I checked his phone at the party and saw those texts, she trailed off, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," I said, "and I meant it. No one should be betrayed like that. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Like we betrayed you, you mean? I didn't deny it. There was no point in pretending. I saw the video, you know, she said quietly. The one Aunt Karen accidentally sent you. I knew what we were saying was wrong even as we were saying it, but I went along with it anyway. I was horrible to you, Eric. We all were. And you didn't deserve any of it. No, I agreed. I didn't. We talked for nearly 3 hours that day. Melissa apologized again and again, not just for the video but for years of small cruelties, for taking my support for granted, for never standing up for me when our parents dismissed my achievements. I didn't make it easy for her, I asked hard questions and called her out when she tried to minimize what had happened. But by the end, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward for us as siblings. Not immediately, and not without a lot more work on her part, but someday. As for my parents, that was a different story. Melissa told me they were in serious financial trouble. The house was in foreclosure, and they'd racked up significant credit card debt trying to maintain their lifestyle after my support ended. They'd been counting on Jake's family connections to help them out, which explained their rush to embrace him and their desperation to maintain appearances. They want to talk to you, Melissa admitted. They need help, and they know it. But I told them they can't just expect you to swoop in and save them again, not after how they treated you. I appreciated her honesty. I'm not interested in talking to them right now, I said. Maybe someday, but they'd need to take responsibility for what they did first. Really take responsibility, not just say sorry because they need money. Melissa nodded. I understand. And for what it's worth, I think you're right. We parted with a tentative hug and a promise to meet again in a few weeks. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was a start. In the months that followed, my life continued its upward trajectory. Olivia and I had our small, perfect wedding, surrounded by friends who genuinely cared about us. I got another promotion at work, this time with a significant raise that allowed us to start looking for our first home. We even began talking about starting a family in a year or two. Melissa and I met regularly for coffee. She'd found a real job in marketing and moved into her own apartment, determined to stand on her own 2 feet for the first time in her adult life. Our relationship wasn't what it had been before everything fell apart, but in some ways, it was more honest, more equal. My parents eventually sent me a letter, a real, handwritten letter, not an email or text. It wasn't perfect. They still minimized some of their actions and tried to explain away others. But they did acknowledge the hurt they'd caused and expressed regret for how they'd treated me. They asked if we could talk, person to person. I haven't decided if I'm ready for that yet. The wound they inflicted goes deep, and some days it still feels fresh. But I know now that I don't need their approval or their love to be whole. I've built a good life with people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. Sometimes I think about that video, about hearing my family laugh as they called me a pathetic failure. At the time, it felt like my world was ending. Now, I see it as the moment my real life began, the moment I stopped trying to earn love from people who would never give it freely and started building a life filled with genuine connection and respect. If there's a lesson in all this, I think it's that real family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about mutual respect, support, and love that doesn't come with conditions or price tags. I found that family in Olivia, in my close friends, and maybe someday, Melissa will be part of that circle again. As for my parents, only time will tell. But whatever happens, I know one thing for certain, I'm not a pathetic failure. I never was. And I never again will let anyone make me feel like I am.